everyone, it's your girl Brain Shanae. Today I'm going to be doing a book review for The Judas Blossom. This is book 1 of the Nightingale and the Falcon series, and this is by Aryan. And I'm gonna let y'all know this book is really good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars just to give it some type of comparison to how I like how great this book is. I compare it to like The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I compare it to the Dandelion Dynasty series by Ken Liu, the Sword of Kaigen. Like this book is amazing. Now I will let you know this is a reimagining of the Mongol Empire's invasion of Persia, with some fantasy and some twist into it as well. And like I said, this is a reimagining, and we are in Persia in the year 2060. So this is occurring in the 2060s, and we are in Persia. And like I said, this is during the time of the Mongol Empire. So we have a few main characters that we constantly see, and that we're introduced to, and we have each and every one of theirs point of views. So the number one person that we have a point of view is Hulagu, who is a Khan, and he is the grandson of Genghis Khan, and he is pretty much the ruler of the Ilkhanate. And then you have his brothers, who are also Khan, Genghis Khan's grandsons, and they each have their own little empire in the Mongol Empire. So you have like the Great Horde and whatnot. And so we are introduced to Hulagu's brothers throughout the entire book, and it gets very interesting. And like literally at the beginning of the book, we're introduced to Monkey, who is Hulagu's brother, who was the Khan at the time, and then something drastic happens. And I will say this book is bloody, but it's a lot of thrill in it as well. But before I even get into that, I will let you know it does have a historical note in the book, which I'll read it. It says the 13th century was an extremely tumultuous period, and the region in which this story is set was rife with complex political wrangling. The Ilkhanate, one of the 4 Mongol Khanates, occupied parts or all of various countries in the Middle East, including Iran, Iraq, Armenia, Georgia, Syria, Azerbaijan, and others, as it expanded and contracted over the years. Most of the major events in this novel are historically accurate, but the timings and who was involved have been changed, as some of the events happened years apart and with different people. Likewise, some of the characters are based on historical figures, but others are fictional. In the case of Princess Kokachin, who is one of my favorite characters in this book, Kokachin, little is known about her beyond a few mentions, the most well-known being in the travels of Marco Polo, where she left China in 1291, intending to marry one Khan, but by the time she arrived in Persia 2 years later in 1293, she ended up marrying that man's son, and then she died 3 years later in 1296. Hers is just one story about which we know almost nothing. And then it says, Zurkne, the House of Strength, is a real ancient athletic system, sport, and martial art which combines many elements, including wrestling, music, philosophy, ethics, and spirituality. So while The Judas Blossom follows historic events, I have taken a number of liberties. The goal was to create a dramatic story set in a part of the world many people know little or nothing about, while hopefully remaining true to the spirit of history. So I also love the history aspect of this book, because I love history. I'm a history buff. I love it. So I also loved being in this space, being in Persia. I haven't read a lot of books where I'm in Persia, and I really felt like I was like a wallflower, just in the background, just watching everyone and everything going on. And like I said, my favorite character in this book is Kokachin, who is whose family was killed by Kublai, which is Hulagu's brother, who soon becomes the Khan of the Mongol Empire, because Monkey, something happened to him, which Hulagu, amongst his brothers, don't really agree that Kublai should have been the Khan. It should have been chosen. You have his brother Eric, who felt differently. So there's some a little bit division that's starting to happen amongst the family. And Kokachin, her family was killed, brutally killed, and by Kublai, because he wanted to avoid uprisings within his own empire. So he was like, oh, hey, Hulagu, you know, you have like this amount of wives and concubines, go ahead and have her. Hulagu didn't really care, and neither did his wives. They just looked at her like she's just here just to be here. There's really no interest. They just really want to keep an eye on her to make sure nothing happens and she's not trying to plan any type of uprisings and whatnot. So Kokujin, she knows that she's not really useful to Hulagu. Hulagu's not really interested in her, but she's constantly being bullied by the like the main wife, the empress, which is Kuyuk. And I cannot stand her. Like, I cannot stand her. I'm like, I get it, you're the empress, but come on, leave Kokujin alone. And she's always in Kokujin's business, trying to figure out, oh, what are you doing? Oh, you're just doing jewelry. You're doing jewelry making. What else are you doing? So she's just trying to be in her business. And Kokujin knows that she doesn't want to just be, you know, Hulu's wife who's just sits around and does nothing. She ends up meeting Layla, and Layla ends up teaching her how to fight and defend herself. And I found that so fascinating. I felt like with Kokujin, her character was just building so beautifully. She was to the point where she felt like she was useless, to the point where she felt empowered. And that's what I loved about Kokujin and the actions that she took in order for her to get where she was towards the end of this book. And then she's introduced to the House of Grace, which I feel in this book is like a secret society. And now, mind you, this is during the invasion of Persia. So you have a lot of people who are trying to find ways to kill the Khan, kill Hulagu, have them have division amongst the family, amongst the Mongols. So not only do we have Kokujin trying to do certain things and help the House of Grace, which is a secret society, who are trying to figure ways of getting inside, you know, in order to pretty much dismantle the Western expansion and dismantle the Mongol Empire entirely. And so now we have Kokujin. Then we have Kayvan, who was a Persian general, and they were defeated. And he lost his family, his country, and he's trying to feel like, okay, maybe I can use my strengths and have Hulagu let me be in his good graces. And that's what ends up happening. And Hulagu ends up confiding in Kayvan, and asking for advice and strategies when it comes to war. So literally Kayvan is already inside. So he's already doing some things on his own just to dismantle things. Then we have Temujin, who is Hulagu's youngest son, who Hulagu doesn't really care for, because they make fun of him, they make fun of his weight, they say he's useless. And so Temujin, he's doing everything he can possible in order for Hulagu to notice him and to appreciate him and to acknowledge him, that he's even his son, right? And so one day, out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, you have to read it to find out, but he ends up getting these powers. It's called like the Eternal Fire. And during this time of learning and reading in the library and whatnot about these powers and these gifts, he ends up losing weight, his body starts to change, and Hulagu notices this. But he knows this is only because he wants to use Temujin for his powers. And at this point, at the beginning point of Temujin knowing about his powers, he felt, oh my gosh, I'm finally, my father finally appreciates me. He acknowledges me of being his son and stuff like that. But down the line, Temujin realizes that his father doesn't really care for him. He only cares for him because he wants to use him for his own agenda, in order to use him for the Western expansion, in order to use him in war and battle for them to win battles and war. So Temujin also was starting to think for himself, which I think as his character as well, we saw progress and we saw a lot of growth. And we also meet the 12, which are a group of women who are the House of Grace that I was talking to you about, the secret society, and what they do and how they do in order to do things. Now, they don't just let anybody in the House of Grace, but Kokujin was an exception. And so within this book, there's a lot of betrayal. There's a lot of jealousy. It's a thrill the entire time. You will never get bored, because something is always happening between each and every character, and there's a lot of growth. And like I said, within these main people like Kayvan, and you have Kokujin, and then you have Temujin, they are all starting to trying to get into the circle of the Mongols and trying to disrupt that circle. And in this book, they have a saying, Mongols don't kill Mongols. But closer to the end of this book, that begins to take a turn for itself, because there's, like I said, there's betrayal amongst Hulagu's sons, there's betrayal amongst Hulagu's brothers, and so I feel, and it's crazy. But then what Kokachin goes through with the Empress Koyuk is crazy, and the thing that she asked Kokachin to do was just crazy, because Hulagu, at the time when Temujin, his youngest son, he realizes that Temujin does not want to use his powers anymore for his father, Hulagu immediately just considers him a traitor. And so his empress is like, okay, I got you. Do not worry about Temujin. I will take care of him. And so she has her own way of doing things. And then we find more information, the secret society, that like the powers that Temujin has able to develop and have. There's actually a group of people, like I think only a total of 6 people that have these powers and abilities. And one of the women, I think it was Alexandria, I forget her name. She was telling him, like, we don't use our powers to pick a side. We usually just sit in the background and see what happens. We don't use our powers to get ahead or get advantages or to destroy a whole country, to destroy the whole world. But it's crazy because towards the end of the book, we meet one of the 6 people, and you could just tell there a lot of stuff is about to unravel and unfold, and a lot of chaos. And I'm here for it. This book ended to the point where I really need the second book, because I want to know what happens next. I'm like, okay, we were this close with, the Mongols empire going down, but not really. We still have Hulagu. And I'm thinking to myself, somebody needs to kill him. Somebody needs to hurry up and kill Hulagu. But just because you kill Hulagu, that does not mean that the Mongol rule will disappear. You still have so many other characters. Like you still have to deal with Hulagu's sons, and you still have to deal with Hulagu's brothers. So it's just like, if you killed one of them, it wouldn't make a difference. So they're trying to dismantle the entirety of the Mongol Empire and the family altogether. That way, once everyone is dead, it's a clean slate, and a lot of people will be able to rebuild and to reclaim their country, and to honor the people that were killed. So this is a really great book. The pacing is amazing, and it just takes you on a ride. It's very bloody, but this story is very epic. Even on the back, it talks about more information of the book. It says 1260s Persia. Hulagu Khan will use any means to fulfill the dream of his grandfather Genghis Khan and create an empire that covers the world. Temujin, his youngest son, is given a final chance to prove his worth as a warrior, but there is something dangerous rippling under the surface that makes him far more useful. And then it says, Kokachin is the last of her tribe. Abandoned in a foreign land after being married off to Hulagu, she is determined to find a purpose no matter the cost. And then it says, Kaivan despises the Mongols for the massacre of his people, but when offered a chance to serve Hulagu, he takes it, giving him an opportunity to destroy the Mongols from within. And then it goes into saying, family and war collide in this thrilling and bloody reimagining of the Mongol Empire's invasion of Persia. So like I said, I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm really wanting the second book immediately, because I want to know what happens next. I want to know what happens to Temujin, since he pretty much left his father and said, F him, like, you're not using me for your own personal gain and for your own agenda. And then I also want to know what happens to Kokachin as well. Like, those 2 characters were my favorites out of all of them, I'm not going to lie. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens next in the second book. So yeah. But that is it. That is my book review. I know I was rambling a lot, but I really enjoyed it and I loved it. And I look forward to reading more, especially with the Judas Blossom and what book 2 has in store. But thank you all for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video and this book review. If you did, please, please, please give me a thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button and that bell to be notified when I upload more videos in the future. But thank you all for watching, and I hope you all are staying healthy and staying safe. See ya.